It's my great pleasure to introduce Christine Samuel, a true pioneer in embracing life's uncertainties with grace and courage. 3 years ago, Christine made a bold decision, leaving behind a successful 20-year career in user experience design to embark on a journey of self-discovery and purpose. Christine is a coach, facilitator, author, and speaker, exploring the question, what does it mean to be human in today's world where technology blurs the lines between human and artificial intelligence? Drawing from personal experiences, Christine has penned a book titled The Heart Space, Living with Grace and Ease in an Era of Uncertainty, which was launched in April 2024. Her work offers a compassionate and holistic approach to embracing discomforts, fears, and contradictions, with expertise spanning mindfulness, relational intelligence, human-centered design, and solution-focused coaching. Christine brings a wealth of knowledge on how we can listen deeply, acknowledge one another, and cultivate spaces of collective wisdom. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to a guide for our times, a voice for the heart space, and an advocate for embracing our full humanity in all of its beautiful complexity. Christine, welcome to the Transcendent Minds podcast.
Peter, thank you so much for beautiful introductions. It's really touched my heart, and I'm gonna listen again and use it. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I read through your book in 2 sittings, and I was taken aback by your journey. Bring the audience in and give us a little bit of background, your origin story, and then let's dive into the book because there's so much I want to talk to you about.
I grew up in Indonesia, and when I was 11 or 12, I loved to adventure with my friends, my sisters, to laneways, because over there, the roads are not just west-east, but they are like meander. For me, it's such a great adventure to go along those roads and then find a way back home. When I look back, that's basically what my life is about. I left the comfort of my family, my communities, and moved to Canada alone. And within 6 months, I moved 6 times to different houses. Then I started my career in user experience design. After 20 years, there am I again, living all of it to try a new path, calling me to explore, because I felt in this lifetime, things that happen at work with me was just reflections of what happened in the world, where we are living based on fear. We are doing things, even though it feels like successful, a lot of money, and it's like you have that validation as successful in your career. It's all about survival. I had an opportunity to experience a lot of pain. I thought, this is the contrast that the universe tries to show me, that we're not supposed to live this way. I decided to leave that, and I know I had fear, and just pursue what I felt is what I'm here for. And for me, if we can all look within and acknowledge the inner genius that we all have. The workplace is not about specialness because you are replaceable. But if you can look within and accept all the contradictions that you have, like we think about weakness, but also strength, then we can touch that part of us that bring us forward, a freedom of expressions of who we are. I think that's a short story of, I hope that's clear.
Absolutely. I like your meandering path roads and finding your way back home. When you start to set your feet upon the path of liberating your genius, because I believe everybody has a measure of genius in them that they can liberate. And that might be as simple as the successful homemaker, because that's what she deliberately decides to do and make the best of it.
I totally agree. This is something that I still learn as well, is what is success means. Because what we think will fulfill us based on what the society told us to do, it's basically different than what we think is fulfillment. And can we learn that even a successful homemaker is enough, or successful doing something small and it's not, you don't have million followers, is enough. we are in the space to learn this because a lot of people out of work. And when out of work, sometimes we ask, who am I? If I'm not my title, if I'm not my role professionally, who am I? So this is a place where we all, I think, as humanity, we're given a chance to really ask this question to ourselves.
And not only who am I, but who can I become? What am I becoming? You're absolutely right. When we become inculcated with our upbringing, whether it's culture or creed or religion or parental or teachers, if you don't rise above it, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that because there's some good things, but you can move from servile submission to conditioning to independent assessment of your essence. There's a huge difference between the two because one plays out on the stage of being servile and being in your general habitual living, and the other allows you to not only look at the frame, but to walk through the frame. It's the difference between looking in your rearview mirror, which is small, and looking at the windshield in front of you, which is large and moving forward. Let's dive into your book. Do you want to introduce your book and how you came to write this book?
Yeah, so my book is called The Heart Space, and the subtitle is Living with Grace and Ease in an Era of Uncertainty. I didn't know the title, I didn't know what is it about, but there's something weird about what we are doing right now. We become more human doing rather than human being. I felt it in myself too, because I became more human doing than human being. The things that happen at work gave me opportunity to look inside and what that's supposed to mean. My background is user experience design. I always look for what is it that create experience in our life. I realized there's two different operation mode that we human are operating from, the head space and the heart space. For me, I've been living a lot and depending a lot from the head space because in my professional career, everything I do as a user experience design and strategies, there is an approach and strategy. When there's new project come in, I always knew what to do, or at least knew the steps by step that I need to go through to face this or to create solutions out of the problem. But there is a dissatisfaction in me because since I grow personally and spiritually, and I wanted to walk my own path, but there is no proven step-by-step strategy to do that. It scared me so much. And I tried to do it a long time ago, but I couldn't because that uncertainty is really paralyzing, make me overthink. As a recovering overthinker and high functioning anxiety, I realized what happened in my mind by noticing, oh, the headspace is so reductive. It's like looking at things in the dark with a flashlight, and only thing that you see is bright and very clear, precise. What happened if we use that kind of way of seeing to protect ourselves, to focus on what's wrong, to focus on lack, so we can move ourselves to success, to achieve something. So I thought, wow, it's not just me, but I think everyone in the world is, especially the high achiever, we push ourselves to success mostly because of lack. Then it's so hard to not living with lack because we're afraid if we don't really think or focus on the lack, we're not going to push ourselves moving forward. I found that transitions between the head and heart space, that is the critical point. I realized when I knew that everything that I did, I cannot use those things because it didn't work. So I had to use different things. I just went to the extreme, just surrendering and facing my fear. That's what I found. Oh, this is very interesting. This is the heart space and how we can see everything in more in passing way. So that's why I write the book, because I experienced myself to transition and walking with the unknown. There's no way we can handle that just relying on the head space. We must go down 12 inches to our heart space. That's why that book comes, because I realized, especially in this kind of era, we are very masculine driven. Go, achieve, do something. And there's a calling where everything collapsed, that we need to be gentle. We need to be more like Mother Earth, to open and accepting all of it so that new things that beyond the way we think we know can arise through us as humanity.
Beautiful. Something I said to a client the other day who was analytical and told me how busy she was. So the question I put to her was, are you delusionally busy or are you effectively busy? Many people are delusionally busy, which is what society demands of you in a sense. You think you're pushing the needle towards a particular goal, but you don't quite get there. Then you fill it with all the other things that are part of the machinery of distraction. There's an argument for being in the heart space versus the head space. It's essentially about balancing emotion with logic, because in the heart space, there's the emphasis on emotional intelligence and intuition, and the focus on empathy and compassion, and the significance of authentic connections and experiences. Whereas in the headspace, that prioritizes logical thinking and rational analysis. So the focus is on data, facts, and objective reasoning. That can lead to more calculated and strategic decisions. Do we need both? I think we do need both. We do need balanced decision making. We need to combine emotional awareness with logical reasoning, because that often leads to better, more holistic decisions. But who are you becoming when you are involved in that whole process? Are you having a complete human experience? Because we're inherently both emotional and rational beings. When we embrace both aspects, that allows for a fuller life experience, because there's always going to be situational adaptability, and different situations may require emphasizing one over the other, but having access to both allows for greater flexibility. In the first chapter of your book, you use, I love this metaphor, you use the metaphor of a knife to illustrate how our analytical thinking, while powerful and useful, can also lead to unintended consequences when overused or misapplied. This analogy cleverly highlights how our modern society's over-reliance on analytical thinking has led to a disconnection from nature, a disconnection from our bodies, and our innate sense of aliveness. What inspired you to use the knife metaphor to explain the concept of analytical thinking?
I wrote that book. It's not everything is there and I write it. It's more about walking on the park, daydreaming, listening to a podcast and get something in it, and then another one. The story come, of course, but I see it in a way of, there's also a quote there where I forgot the name, but the quote saying we using our analytical a lot, that we cut reality and we cannot put it back. I totally agree with that. From there, the story comes because I see it in myself. That's what I did. Again, that's a both thing, like you said. It's not like this or that, because that's what the world is. That's what our analytical approach in life is, like right or wrong, black or white. It's not, it's both. But my book shows we've been relying too much on this. We need to return to the heart. And what I found writing the book and also living it, I call it relational intelligence. And if we have that relational intelligence, which come from connection with the heart, connection with our experience, that we can feel, we can sense, not just can think, but we listen, we feel, we sense what you said, what others said, what I feel, what I said in my mind, what is my self-talk. Also sensing in between all of us, because as we speak, something happened. In the interaction, there is interaction. So the action, the evolving action that is in the present happen in the interaction. And I found if we stay in the heart space, we can feel and sense that interaction in the fresh flowing way. Then we can use our head space, analytical, that's guided by a bigger or more encompassing perspective to digest or to change that data into meaningful information that is new and fresh, is not based on my perception or my judgment or my reliance with my old experience or my belief in my head only.
Staying with analytical thinking, you emphasize the importance of embodied experience and being present, which suggests that our analytical mind often prevents us from fully engaging with life. This resonates with many modern mindfulness teachings, but it frames it in the context of a broader cultural and intellectual history. Can you elaborate on the practical ways people can reconnect with their embodied experience in daily life?
Yeah, I did put a lot of like simple practice in chapter 10. How can you do this? I know sometimes what's a connection helping me to stay in my body more. I can say this, and this is what come out at this moment right now. The pleasure that we feel doesn't come from intellect, doesn't come from analytical. It comes from eating ice cream or inhaling fresh air, playing with our kids, reading books, or even going through social media. It comes from very physical things, like the things that we're looking for. It's only can be experienced in the body, not in the, oh, happiness is this as an abstractions or definitions, or chocolate cake tastes like this. Chocolate cake only can be tasted when you eating it at that moment, not when you are thinking or analyzing it. What I suggest is, can we allow ourselves, give ourselves that time to really savor drinking tea and smell the aroma of the tea. Therefore, our brains start, oh, it's not just our involved in the story in our head, but there's fun thing in the presence. There's fun thing in just having a simple cup of tea. There's fun thing in having conversation with my children. As we notice more of that, we become more aware, more connected, or more willing to say or be pursued by our own experience. Hey, there's something nice here. Can I stay a little bit longer? That's what I found being in nature feels like, or give me an ideas. As you see in my books, there's a lot of experience or insight that I have coming from just walking in the park or picking up peaches from the trees. There's a lot of things that nature or the universe can teach us. A simple thing that is not written in a book, but whenever you read things in a book or listen to somebody, it's still intellectual understanding. The only way is to experience it, having that personal experience. I hope by that joy and enjoyment of experience little things, we become more willing to return to our body and experience it.
After each chapter, you have reflective questions, which I really enjoyed looking at and pondering over those, but looking at it from the present moment, because when I think about the body, I think about the heart, I think about this whole organism is always in the present. It's not in
Yes.
the future. It's not in the past. It's only this that is either in the future, which could be to do with worry and anxiety, or it's in the past, which is usually based on shame or guilt, or I should have done this, or I should have done that, the shoulda, woulda, couldas, all of those things. But the body is always in the present. The heart is always in the present. When we tune to it, we have presence.
I love it. I love what you're saying. Isn't it interesting that English language, presence as a gift and present as you present in the moment, using the same words. Our body can really teach us as a teacher to be present, because our mind is very sophisticated. It can go time travel, but our body cannot. So if we want to anchor in the presence, let's see what our body doing, because that's what it best. When we talk, we always need to be precise, and we talk about mind, body, spirit, soul, but they all are the same. It's the language that we sometimes I feel like, yes, it's good to differentiate them, because then we can learn more, because that's how our intellect can learn from differentiations. But also at the same time, I am not just my body, I'm my spirit, I'm my soul, I'm love, I'm joy. When we say I am, and I know a lot in the spiritual teaching and ancient wisdom talk about I am, because at that moment, that's who we are.
There was a note I made about you explain the concept of a man-made world where you illustrate how many of our societal structures and personal struggles stem from constructs created by human thought rather than natural phenomena. And this perspective it's challenged me, I think it will challenge readers to reconsider what they view as fixed reality versus changeable human constructs. How can we distinguish between necessary mind made constructs that benefit society and those that may be limiting or harmful?
I like your questions because everything is not about good or bad. It's all the spectrum of usefulness and distraction. I think the first idea is that's why I write it in my book. It's to make people aware that not all of that we think natural is just natural. Most of it is human construct. For me, the way I learn about it is like I struggle with in the past, what is success for me? I struggle with, for example, at work, a lot of how good I am or how good I'm performing is based on the criteria at work. So they have a certain set criteria that makes the company or the business move. And everyone under that will be measured by that criteria.
Like KPIs, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
KPI and all this stuff like that. So I realized, oh, I strive to it, right? And even in my relationship with my coworkers, for example, sometimes I'm afraid to speak because I worry that at the end of this term, my performance review gonna be affected. Then I ask that question, is that really true? Because when we start using our conflict that we have experienced insights about the societies, about ourselves, about who we think we are, and take a look where that come from, what is the criteria that we create give us that feeling, then we can start questioning that. Instead of questioning ourselves, I'm not good enough, I'm failure, or this and that, like use our doubt, use our analytical to question what is the belief, what is the structure that makes us feel that way, and start to unlearn, because we don't see it if it's a mind made. Then we deal with this vicious cycle about ourselves, but we all are interconnected. It's like there's a relational web that create our realities, and we must question that when it's not or useful for us.
You so eloquently delve into the nature of perception and reality in your book, where you draw on insights also from neuroscience to argue that what we perceive as reality is actually a construction of our minds. And this perspective aligns with both ancient philosophical ideas and modern scientific understanding. In your research, in your meanderings when you were writing this book, did you find any particular practices or techniques that can help people become more aware of the constructed nature of their reality?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. What I found in my practice during that writing book, I stumbled upon centering prayer, meditations based on contemplative Christian traditions.
Mm.
And in that centering prayer, there's a known book called In the Cloud of Unknowing. A lot of contemplative Christian centering prayer is about meditating and letting go what you know about yourself. So it's like receiving whatever come in, like thoughts and stuff, but at the same time, allowing yourself to be like, I don't know anything. Like in that meditation, I'm letting go what I know about myself. And that's the hardest part. Like, who am I? I don't know who I am if I let what I know about myself, right? Going through that. And also, I include meditation from Psalm 23. You don't have to be Christian on this, but the Psalm 23 really helped me to be that way, to let go everything, because it says like this, the Lord is my shepherd. What I did was, instead of going to my analytical, I experienced what it feels like if there's a higher being is my shepherd. I don't have to do a lot of stuff. I don't have to figure things out. Everything I do, there's always guidance. And then I feel it in my body. Wow, wow. Just this is so relaxed. I lack nothing. So the Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. And by contemplating that word, I lack nothing, he makes me lay down in green pasture. For me, oh, I can just relax and lay down in green pastures and it's just relax and lead me near quiet water. I just don't have to worry. And then he refreshes my souls. That is not thinking or analyzing, but feeling it. What is this experience? Imagining it in my body, to have letting go and know you are guided and lay down. And I relax deeply. In that relaxation, I allow myself to let go. Everything I know about me, everything I know about what I think God is, or everything I know about realities, I can let it go. From there, I walk on the street. I walk closing my eyes in the park. I can let go, not knowing. And that's allowing my nervous system to relax, because before, like when I used to suffer from high functioning anxiety, all I know in my body, like my state of being, is tension. I have no idea what it feels like to be relaxed. Maybe a little bit, but not as relaxed as totally relaxed. Now, since meditations, doing that every single day, my body start to know what it means to be relaxed. So I have more in my nervous system. I have a bigger spectrum of what is tension and what is relaxation. Now I have this huge differentiations and spectrums of what it means to fully surrender and fully anxious with my deadline. There's more sensibility to feel, to sense, to check into my body or even my mind what it's doing, and to have that longing. You know what? I want to return to that place. Therefore, I always go back to meditation in the morning. I always want to return to that place of fully surrender, fully not have to carry all the baggage in my mind about who I am, how good I am, and what people think about me, or the conversation that is done that is just bothering me. I can just let go because I know that I want to be there. Of course, in our life, I have to deal with kids, my husband, and all the other things. I have to go back and forth, right? Because again, we have to use our intellectual or analytical mind to create our planning to do what's next. But then we can return back to that place of comfort, of surrendering, of resting, knowing that we are guided. So from that physical experience of being in meditations, I realized, hey, you know what? I can let go the conversation that bothering me with someone and hitting the news. I can just let go because I don't have to ruminate that, because I don't have to hold it. I can just be comfortable with not knowing.
Talking about the power of prayer without being religious about it, I find the power of prayer takes me to a place whereby I don't have my foot on the gas. I've got my foot on the brake. It's much easier if you have a parasympathetic response. You can slow down. And when you're slow, it's much easier to speed up. But if you're in sympathetic dominance and you're going fast, it's much harder to slow down. With the power of prayer, it's a way of being able to embody and embrace so that the vertical axis listens, but the horizontal axis speaks. If you can carry that with you, when you have presence, you can cultivate the ability to shape your perceptions without falling into solipsism or self-centeredness or deny external realities. Because as your book emphasizes, the power of individual perception in shaping reality suggests that we have much more control over our experiences than we might think. This empowering message is balanced with a call for understanding and embracing different perspectives, so that we are no longer being attached to all these things, whether it's what somebody thinks about me or a conversation or whatever it is. The more that we can subtract from our lives rather than adding to our lives, the more we come into the embodied essence of who and what we are and what we want to become in that process. You also draw on the parallels between ancient wisdom and modern quantum mechanics when you discuss the role of the observer in shaping reality and interdisciplinary approach offers a unique perspective on human consciousness and its relationship to the world. How do you see the relationship between spiritual wisdom and scientific understanding evolving in the future?
That's very interesting questions. And I think they are merging. And I know it's difficult. That's why we need to get rid of rigid ways of seeing things, because the head is always go back to the past experience, past knowledge to comprehend what is in front of us. For me, what helping me to remove that box is I don't have to rely on what I know, that box of what I think I know, because relying on what we know is related to our identity. If our identity is fixed with all the previous belief, and now with the science and research, new research where everything emerge, that dogma could ruin who we are, right? And if we related too much about what we believe about ourselves to the old paradigms about science and how we were created, then we have problem to embrace even science, because science are merging with spiritualities, and we become more aware, our collective level of consciousness become more open. Things that we think separated as a wall, spirituality, science, physical, mental, spirituals are many different things, but they're not. They are one. But our capabilities as human to comprehend things needed us to split them so we can understand them. But as we allow ourselves, and therefore that's why I felt like it's so important to return to the heart space, because as we struggle with comprehending what's happening in this life right now with the AI technologies and all the polarizations, we need a space where we can bring all contradictions, all paradox in one, because that's where we will find new way of ideas and insights that come from allowing it a little bit longer, staying in our mind and our heart, so we don't go straight back to habitual thinking or habitual way of responding. It's so important, and I hope many more people would read my book.
You discuss how our need for control rooted in fear can lead to various societal issues, including inequality and the constant striving for success. This perspective can challenge readers to reconsider their motivations and the societal structures that perpetuate these fears. How do you think we can address societal inequalities while acknowledging the role of fear and control in perpetuating them? How can we find a balance between striving for success and living contently in the present?
This is going to be a long road for humanities if we're not awake. For me, I don't want to discuss, or I'm reluctant to discuss what society need to change, because then we come into a debate, a discussions, what is the best based on hypothetical ideas of what we think is the best. For me, the way to answer that question is to return to ourselves and find that space where we learn to allow and accept and listen deeply to our own lack and fear. If we know how to handle our fear personally, if we know how to handle how we deal with lack in our perception and know where that's coming from, it's not coming from, yeah, of course, the government or the situation, but if we take ownership of our choice and how we deal with our fear and our belief with money and scarcities, if we're able to do that, if we deal with that first, then we have the answers to deal with the societal problem. Because right now, what we do with the societal problem, we're coming from what we know. And we all know what we know doesn't work. So we have to learn a different way of responding. And the way to respond is to learn how to deal with our struggles. Be kind, be loving, be compassionate, have self-acceptance, bring the inner wisdom that we all have because we are born with it. We just don't use it much. We have understanding of how to deal with it within ourselves. The poverty that we all have, even though some people has tons of money, the drive to get more money, to get more success because of the poor poverty within. So if we can deal with that first, I felt that's the only way. Maybe that's too strong, but that's the best way to deal with what's happening outside.
In order for us to know anything, we have to know ourselves. We have to be able to address those structures within ourselves, our cognitive, our emotional structures, and look at how are we thinking? How are we thinking about being a human in this 21st century? Can you talk to me more about the survival mind? Because you present that in the book and it elucidates how our mental focus on avoiding negative outcomes can trap us in a cycle of anticipatory thinking. This mindset inhibits our ability to embrace the present and limits our potential for growth and fulfillment. Can you elaborate on the concept of the survival mind and how does it differ from other cognitive states that we may experience?
Yeah, thank you for asking that questions. This is the common story that everyone probably know about survival, right? In nature, when we used to live in wilderness, if you see a branch, like a dry withered branch on the ground, and you mistakenly think it's a snake, a poisonous snake, you actually okay. It's just the mistakes in your mind, right? You don't die. But if you mistakenly see a poisonous snake as a dry branch on the ground, and you say, it's just a branch, I step on it. If you mistakenly do that, you die. Our biology support that because in our nervous system, there's three things that we do as species: self-protection, self-preservation, and self-production. The first thing that the other two can work is self-protection. And when I wrote the first chapter, the first section about the headspace, I also very passionate to learn about trauma healing. In trauma, there's a lot of nervous systems and parasympathetic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system. But I also felt it's not just about our nervous system, but our way of thinking, our meaning creations that humans have is also supporting survival. So now for survival, the best way, the best cognitive operation system to support survival is analytical. So I thought, wow, if we think analytical, it is our superpower, but also is used for survival. When you use it a lot, you stay in survival mode. Now, what does that mean? Our analytical way of thinking is our ability to differentiate. If you want to analyze, you need to have preferences from past experience. You need to have things to compare. You need to have things to measure, good or bad, or danger or not danger. And for survival, when it's a threat, when it's dangerous, you need to have ability to think ahead of time. And that's what most intellectuals are paid in the workplace, to be analytical, to be strategical, to manage risk. That's important for our survival. And in a way, it's useful. But imagine that what happened in survival is you tap into that ability to see, to prepare for the worst, because that's what you focus on. That's you responding to life. So in a way, because we are so analytical in our mind, we look at things, we want to predict, we don't want to be able to control, predict. And what you do, if you want to be able to control and predict the future, or like the near future, or to be secured, you look for risk. And when you look for risk, you're always looking for lack. You go into competitions. You go always try to protect yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's very natural as human beings. We want to protect ourselves. But that's how we are operating right now in every aspect of our life. We don't see it. Even in the developed countries, we worry what's going to happen next, even though we have everything, because of our survival mind that we're still using it till now. If we don't know and we cannot tap into other capacities as human beings, like intuitions, wisdoms, creativities, and all the stuff, we have it. We're so reliant on the headspace.
You mentioned various forms of fear, such as fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. How do these fears influence our decision-making processes and overall quality of life?
it's always going to give us stress and anticipation. Imagine if you always be in anticipation for the worst thing happen. Of course, we're going to be stressful. Everything we do is to prevent that to happen. I want to give some examples from my own recent experience that I realized, wow, I'm really afraid. There's something in me that I just did a TEDx talks. It was a lot of preparations. And I see myself at the end. It was so hard to see it the first time. I don't want to listen to myself. When I see it, I like, oh my God, why I talk like that? It's like a lot of criticism, a lot of I didn't perform well, or even though everybody didn't see it. Then I realized why it just doesn't feel good in me. I was so critical. I just did something amazing, something big that needs courage. But that's what I'm focused on. It doesn't give me a good feeling because I want to celebrate it, but I couldn't because I focus on that. I realized what brought me to that place of seeing myself, oh my God, I don't look good, or is because I'm afraid of rejection. Before others reject me, I reject myself first. That's what we do. For me, it's coming from, oh my God, this is not a good feeling I want to experience. What is behind it? And acknowledge that not good feeling. So staying with that, I'm so critical. And then stay with it for a while. So that, oh yeah, that new thing, my fear of rejections, being honest to myself, and then realize being honest that I reject myself before others reject me is very humbling. It's not just humbling, it's allowing me to understand what other people are going through too. It's allowing to say, oh, you're not supposed to be critical. It doesn't work for me that way. Because with everything that I felt, stress or this fear, I can stay with it. Like, why I'm fearful? What is in there? Can I be curious? Can I be kind? Can I be gentle as I self-reflecting about what my fearful is about? Because at the end of the day, if you learn to stay in the heart space, the new insight comes. It's not just about learning about yourself. You're learning about humanity. You're learning about others. You build this understanding and compassion that what I've been through is not just me, but others too. We are critical because we reject ourselves first before others reject us, because we have experienced rejection in the past, and how needed it is in the world, instead of judging us, to learn from that experience to say, oh, that's what I did to myself. Can I love me? Can I accept that? Can I be the person who come and redeem myself from this feeling of rejection? That's what I'm trying to put up, bring that awareness to the world. If we can be kind, if we can be kind to ourselves, if we can be kind to our fear, because when we fear, we know that we are not far from love, because that's a sign. Hey, return to love, right? So all the discomfort that we experience, instead of creating stories about this and that, the society doing this, the politician doing this, just return to say, what is in me that I'm fearful? If we return and take ownership of our own experience, that our mind created that thoughts, that fear in us. Yes, of course, the world is uncertain right now, it's terrible, but like those fear belongs to you. You experience it. So therefore, you use that opportunity to really learn from it instead of creating a story or blaming the world or blaming others and make yourself a victim. I believe that if we stop making ourselves victims, we also going to have less victim and hero story, which is so polarizing. Take the ownership. Don't blame others. Don't blame the world. Yes, of course, acknowledging there is something worrisome concerning the world, but take that and be with that feeling ourselves, because at the end of the day, everything we experience is your own. Yeah, your parents can hurt your feeling or things happening at work, but your experience is your own. Deal with it, own it, and learn from it, because there's something beautiful that comes from being able to stay with your discomfort.
Interesting, and this is probably for another conversation, but the awareness of fear doesn't have fear.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
You also mention labels and stereotypes, and you discuss the problem of labeling and stereotyping. How do these mental shortcuts limit our perception and connection with the world and people around us?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I become more aware, and this is not judging, but like even based on my experience, is what I label is what limits me. What we judge is what limits us. And in my book, I also wrote this, stumble upon the language of indigenous tribes, where it's so different than English or any other language or modern languages, that in modern languages, when we see noun, a chair, a tree, a computer, it's fixed, right? We know it's a chair. A table is a table. A tree is a tree. A lake is a lake. Christine is Christine. A woman is a woman. In society, right? As a language. But in indigenous language, doesn't seen as masculine or feminine, but as evolving being. It's a being. So it's an active thing. When they say a lake, it's not a lake with the modern language say it, but it's a lake that is changing as it goes through seasons. A tree is changing as it goes through seasons. So it's acknowledged a noun as something evolving that is not like the Western language. That's the mindset or the belief that we all believe in the modern society is a thing, a label, do not have potential to be something else. Like a tree is a tree, or a chair is a chair, do not have potential to be a table or something else. So when we label things, of course, it's useful in a way. It gives us an idea of control, because unconsciously when we label, we feel we can control it. We can control our environment. We can name them. But it's a double sword, because it's also allowing us to see that it's evolving. If we can see, let's say, Christine is evolving 20 years ago and now I'm a different person. Or even like when we start this talk, you and I is a different person than now, because as we interacting, something new happened. When you speak and I speak, I get something from you, you get something from me, and audience gets something from us. We are changing and evolving, and we can see, we can allow that not knowing, not to label in a fixed thing or a control thing, because we want to know, because know equal control. Then we can say, oh, let's see what's it's going to be. Because a tree could be a chair, could be a house, could be a squirrel, could be anything else. In my book, I had a story about a turtle who asked a young man, what is this? And the young man put a label on things like a squirrel, a tree, and what is this? Then this turtle said, the tree that you see is also a squirrel, it's also a soil, it's also a grass, because life evolving, it's changing. If we can have that mindset, or at least open with that idea that things are evolving, even ourselves evolving, then we are more able to deal with change, with rapid change, with transitions and uncertainty.
That was a great story. You spoke about indigenous languages like the Passamaquoddy, I
Okay.
think it's
Yes.
called.
Yes.
And they highlight this, I think you call it the languages and relationality. They highlight this relational perspective because verbs change based on context, painting really vivid pictures of actions in relation to their surroundings. The example you had was that walk can become walk uphill, or walk into water, or walk far into a forest. Each phrase conveys a different relational dynamic. And this way of perceiving the world through verbs rather than fixed nouns emphasizes the interconnectedness and constant change in our lives. There's an invitation to see ourselves and our environment as dynamic and alive. That can only serve to foster a much deeper connection with the world around us. You also spoke about transcending fear and survival through, I believe it was relational awareness. Because in moments of crisis, and one of the things I say is that crisis reveals cruciality. It reveals what's crucial to you. In moments of crisis, we often feel alone and disconnected. But when we understand the relational nature of our existence, that can provide a sense of support and belonging. When I was reading about, was it Leyland Melvin, who was the astronaut who
Yes.
experienced that profound shift while in
Yes.
space?
Yeah.
So He realized the interconnectedness of humanity as he shared a meal with fellow astronauts from different countries, all while orbiting Earth. In likewise fashion, during a moment of personal struggle, one can find the remedial balm or the solace in the simple act of walking on the ground. When we recognize our interconnectedness and the unwavering support of life itself, that can help us transcend fear and embrace change. There's a powerful reminder in there that we're never truly alone and we can find stability, we can find resilience through our interconnected relationships with nature and with the world around us. My question to you is, how can acknowledging the relational nature of your existence provide support during challenging times?
I think why we are so fearful, why we are so into survival, like anticipating what's bad going to happen, is deep down this feeling alone, because that's the way analytical is working, the fragmentize of things into smaller so we can comprehend it. In a religious sense, I felt sin because as human, we are a connected being, like we are social being. We thrive to serve one another. If I have my purpose and it's more fulfilling if I can serve and impact others, I feel I contribute to other people. And we all feel that way. If we felt like I'm alone, nobody helped me, and a lot of trauma happens that create that because we need to create the bubble to protect ourselves. That bubble become a limitations. It's because we think, and most of the success mindset is also believe that if you don't do, things not going to happen. You have to do things yourself. You have to try hard. And what is that based on? We are alone. Nobody help us. We are here for our survival. If you don't do anything, you're dead, or you're gonna survive, not gonna be successful. All human fear comes from that place when we felt separated, when we felt alone. All our pain and suffering is when we felt alone. That's why meditations about the Lord is my shepherd, like always be guided, that there's always something else, that it's so relaxing. And I realized I did a lot of facilitation of deep listenings. Sometimes after we listen to one another, we came out from that, we have that sense of lightness, because even though the problem is not solved yet, we know we're not alone. We know other people have similar experience. When we realize that, isn't it like, oh, I'm always taken care of. There's a web of connection that hold me, that I'm not alone. That will ease our pressure. That will ease our needs. I have to do something. I have to figure things out. Our brain become overthinking and active because I have to figure it out. And in that place of anxieties or overwhelm, if you realize the ground is holding you, if you realize not just a physical thing, of course, ground holding you when you walk is not just you, your leg is moving, but also there's something else supporting you. You're not alone. The world and your creation and your success is co-creation. It's never you doing things alone. It's always co-creation. Then we become more relaxed. We can be in harmony. We can quiet a bit, listen, and sense and see what's going on and evolving and attend to what's emerging, because everything is emerging and we don't see that because we see our problem only. When we start bringing the awareness of the heart space, which is interconnected and relational awareness, we start tapping into relational intelligence that we have. The intuition is actually relational intelligence. Wisdom is relational intelligence. Practicing or bringing the awareness that you are never alone in doing things. See it in your daily life, like a simple, ordinary thing. It's make your body realize, oh, okay, I can relax a bit. What I found is very interesting is when we relax, when I felt I don't have to figure out everything, my brain start to calm down. It want to protect us. It's a protection mechanism. So we feel safe, that overthinking, that anxiety will subside, because when the heart lead, when we know that we are interconnected, when we know that we're not alone, we know that everything is co-creation, that we're here to listen more so that we can co-create according to what we want instead of what we don't want, then the mind will be at ease and the mind will be used for good things that support us instead of against us.
Reminds me of the part in your book about the lion trackers, how they don't need to know everything. They just need to develop tracker awareness. And as a tracker, their part is to be awake and to listen. When you look at the word listen, you talked about the earth being by anagram heart. Listen is let in or silent by anagram.
I love that. I knew listen and silent is one word, but you're adding more to my collection.
There's so much more I want to ask you. Would you be willing to come back and do a part two?
Oh, I love to. I love to. I love your questions. I love how deep you go. Yeah, definitely. Let's co-create.
There's a lot more from your book, like living in discovery, all the different aspects of being in discovery, the abundance in everyday moments, where you have the lesson from the apricot tree, the water park story. I'd really like to cover some more of those aspects because I think we can go a little bit deeper into those parts of your book if you would like to do that.
Oh, I love to, Peter.
It shows me that you are becoming an agency of amplification for a different kind of grace and proportion in your life, whereby your soul is being elevated to a point of not an academic perusal or an academic pursuit, but you're spiritually living it as a visceral experience. And by you humanizing that into application through your TED talk, through your book, that is someone who's had boots on the ground. You're someone who is in the present, who's gone through this whole experience of awakening, because many people can speak a good spiritual talk, but can they actually live it? It's the challenge. Can they have the visceral experience of it? Rather than frothing at the mouth with ectoplasm about the love and the light and all the rest of it, which is problematic, which is spiritual bypass, but to look at the stories that have enriched your life and now can enrich the life of others. So here you are as a beacon of transmission for those who have the ears to discern and the eyes to see and the heart to feel, so they can lead with the heart.
Oh, it's beautiful, Peter. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that you give me, your generosity to share this, and for the way you guide the conversations. I felt very good that our conversation would really help others. And thank you for digging deep. You give me opportunity and ask those questions where I can say it or express it. I felt, again, English is my second language, and sometimes but I felt there's something else that helped me speak up. So I appreciate that.
It's clear you're guided. I feel that sense from you. And if we listen and if we get into that sacred space, if we get into the heart space, and I think that you've been subpoenaed to be able to do this work, this holy work, if they decide to take it up and embody an ecology of practices that enable themselves to focus on their hearts and their minds and to lead from those places whereby they are true to themselves. They're not craving the opportunity to be something or somebody else. It's the essence of who they are, to discern and observe what is the essence that this particular life is amplifying, which is a beautiful way of characterizing the essence, not the personality, but the essence of that life. When that comes forth into the world, that shines very brightly. This is a pause continuance rather than an end.
I just want to bring the word, after you listen to this episode, go for a walk, go to nature and observe and listen and use a different way of seeing. For example, we focus on something. And I invite you, as you finish listening to this episode, go to nature and allow what to come to you instead of you focusing on something. Let it come to you and allowing it to touch you, and listen and observe. That's my parting words.
Where can people find you and where can people buy your book?
You can find me as christinesamuel.ca. That's my website. I gave a free download one chapter chapter 2 about the Manmade world. So you can download for free. You can find me on Instagram at Christine Samuel here. And you can find my book, The Heart Space, Living with Grace and Ease in an Era of Uncertainty, on Amazon.
Beautiful. I liked your parting words, because whenever I have gone to an art gallery, I walk into the picture. It's a gateway to an essence, and I let the colors bleed into me. So it comes into me and let it wash over me like a wave, and then see what pops up.
That's the amazing thing. I think I found very enjoyable is like that surprise when you allow that to come, and then something in you say something that is, wow, so different, like all the insight, the fresh insight. Just that's the most fun, because at least for me, I felt connected, and that connections make feel life meaningful. When I'm connected, new things arise for me beyond my own understanding, beyond my own language and the way I think. That really expand and allow me to be more willing to listen, because it's just a beautiful thing to allow that beauty that beyond what your mind knows, and witness it yourself and experience it yourself.
Yeah, that's the living fire of soul esteem, and radiating that into the world. That becomes a powerful aphrodisiac, because when you embody and embrace the essence of who and what you are in an authentic manner, you can enact and extend that, and people feel the resonance of presence. That's a very powerful aphrodisiac.
You're right.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's been fantastic. Thank you for sharing your insights and your wisdom, your energy and your presence. I feel that there's something much more in this.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it. Thank you for seeing me.
I see you. Take care, Christine.
Bye for now.